Alpha.
Hi, my name is Olanrewaju Esho, and I'm a Sony ambassador. I'm also a cinematographer. I remember the last time I did a webinar on this platform, I said I was a wedding cinematographer, and that's largely true. But we also do all kinds of genre of video production, and one of those production type is documentary filming. And one critical thing about documentaries is that you always do interviews. You will always have someone to interview to have a perspective to tell your story. Now, in today's webinar, I'll be explaining how I set up cameras, how I set up lights, how I put together and edit an interview for a documentary. So at the end of this webinar, you will have been able to learn how I put an interview recording together for a project. Come along and let's learn. All right, guys, if you made it this far, then that means you're really interested and you want to learn how I put together interview setups like this. We have a key light here already. We'll start with lights, but before we delve into how we put all of these things together, I want to introduce to our muse for today. We have Lola here, and she's a pastry chef. Welcome. Thank you for coming on our set. So we'll just start with the basics. We have a key light here, and if on this camera, I'm sure it's peaking. This key light is set at about a 45-degree angle so that it can light her face and give her a nice profile on this side of her face. Now, if you notice, on this side, it's a bit shadowy, and that's the whole reason why we're lighting from the side, so that it can just give a nice profile and a very soft profile of a face. And that's why we have a very big reflector or a big diffuser on it. I have a Goda 60 SLW light on it, and with a 90-liter diffuser mounted on it. So this gives her a nice profile. But if you look at the camera, it looks good, but we can make it better. We can make it more interesting. Now, one of the things that you want to do is, once you set up a key light, you also want to add a bit of hair light. You want to separate out a bit from the background. And I have a small LED light setup here that I'm going to put on, and that will begin to give her a bit of hair light. And if you can look at the frame right now, you can see there's a bit of separation of her from the background. I'll put it off again and put it on so that you can just tell how it separates her from the background. So basically, those are the two lights you need to, use. Sometimes you can add a third light, which is a fill light, but a lot of times you don't have the luxury to set up 3, 4, 5 lights. Instead of me setting up a fill light, I'll rather use a diffuser to diffuse a little bit of this light back to her face to fill on the other side of the face. But with this setup, I am happy and we're good to go. Now, just to make it a little bit more interesting, I'm going to also throw in a bit of light to the background. Now, if you notice at the back, there's a window and it's a bit dull at the back. So I have another light on this side. It's also an SL60W light. It's white balanced, it's 5600 Kelvin. And I have a grid on it just to mimic me throwing a bit of light, just to mimic sunlight from outside. So I'm gonna put that on briefly. And I'm sure you can just see a huge difference from when we started from. We started with the key light, now we have a bit of hair light. And the hair light, I gelled it a bit, so it's a bit warmer. So it's around about 7,000 Kelvin. So it's a bit warmer just to give her a bit of separation. And I have the SL60W giving her a bit of background just to separate her from the back. Now, coming to the cameras, I have two cameras set up here. I have an A and B camera, And can you turn this camera to her now just to show her side profile? Now, each time you're setting up for a shoot like this, for an interview like this, you want to set your accent light, or rather your accent camera, opposite the direction of the key light. And I'm going to show you a diagram to show all of this setup in a bit. So you have your key light here, your accent camera, what I like to call an accent camera to just give a face profile, should be on the other side of the talent, while my B camera, which is actually the main camera, is getting a very wide profile of her with the background. So yeah, if I can just look through behind this camera right now, I think I'm happy with this frame. And I'm also happy with this side profile. So if you're looking at this accent camera, I like to call it an accent camera, you can see that her face is well lit, and also the hairlight is separating her very nicely from the background. So basically, these are all the things you need to do to set up for an interview scenario. So another thing that you need to take into consideration is you want to separate your talent from the background. We have pretty much about 10 feet of background space from the talent to the background, because you don't want to shoot your background against the wall, and probably a white wall or very boring wall. It's not going to be good. It's not going to look interesting. So you always want to account for a bit of space so that you can create that separation from the background. So the next thing, we've talked about light, we'll have our camera set up, we're good to go. The next thing you need to take care of is audio. And what we like to do is bring in a boom pole, a boom microphone, and set it at about 45 degrees, pointing to her chest, basically. And also just to confirm at this position that the microphone is not in frame, we're good to go, and we can start recording the interview. Now, usually what I do is, in addition to this microphone, I'll always put up a lapel microphone on her. And the reason why is just so that you can have a bit of redundant audio. You cannot, sometimes you have these interviews and one thing can go wrong. The reason why I always like to shoot two cameras is so that if you can cut from camera A to B. Also, the reason why I will always want to shoot two audio setups is so that we can have redundant audio. While we are editing, I'm going to be showing you both the sound we're getting from this and also the sound we're getting from a lapel. So we're all set up, camera is good, light is set up, we have our accent light, our hair light, our key light, and a bit of background light pointing to the background to just add a bit of splash of shadows to the background. And we're good to go. We're looking all set up. Now we're going to be doing some interviewing and asking some questions to actually show the process. It's not just setting up, but also you need to understand and also know how to ask questions. Now, a lot of times when you're asking questions, you want to ensure that whoever you're asking the questions, they express themselves freely. Do not rush to quickly want to cut through their explanation, especially when you want to get the facts, you want to get a perspective of the story. You don't want to cut them in. You want them to express themselves as much as possible. So so the kind of questions you're going to be asking are more of open-ended questions, so that they can really express themselves and explain the whole process of what you're trying to know from them. So we're going to cut to the actual interview session and ask her a bunch of questions. And afterwards, we'll go to the edit, put it together, and show you the final mix.
Well, at the point at which we started pastry, there was a gap in the market in Nigeria. So at this point, I was looking for what to do, and I felt the need, and I love baking. So I felt the need to go back to school and actually learn the whole process, and not just bake cakes, but actually know the entirety of actually being a pastry chef. Being a pastry chef has a different dimension. You've got the cake section, you've got a dessert section, and then you've got the patisserie section, which includes the bread, the croissant, it's quite a broad subject. So it's not just cake. It's quite a big, subject. Yeah, it is.
Now, talking about cameras, I'm shooting on two A7 III cameras, and I have 85 on this camera, a Sony 85 1.8 lens, and on this we have a 50 lens. Now, the reason why I like these two lenses is because they are fantastic portrait lenses. Their picture quality is awesome, and most importantly, because they're fast lenses at f1.8, they can really separate the background from the subject. So, and that's why we go with both lenses to shoot this kind of interviews, especially in scenarios where we don't have a really big space, or we don't have a very long place where we can throw away the background, irrespective of the lens choice we have. So there are basic setup, and basically what you need is one camera, one light, and a reflector. But if you want to add a bit of color and a bit of dimension to your interview recording, that's when you have an accent camera, which is a close-up shot. I have an 85 lens on it, and also all the other lights here. Now, if you want to take it a step higher, if you want to take the whole process, just a step higher, what you need to do is throw in stuff like a slider. I have a motorized slider here that is just giving her face a bit of parallax, and just so that it can give it a bit of character. Now, when we begin to edit this together in post-production, this is going to add a bit of movement to the whole dynamic of the interview. It just makes the whole process more interesting and more dynamic.
For me, I have an amazing husband. He supports me 100%, if not 110%. I call him the chairman of the business. So he comes in every now and then to actually help us out, when he's not at work as well. So what we try to do is we find a balance there as well. He picks up the children when he can, and I do that as well. So for me, my children come into the bakery, they do their homework here, the lesson teacher come in here, to do the lesson. We go home together at the end of the day. So we try to find a balance. We go on holiday together as well. So it's not work. We try, like you say, having a balance is more important. I'm a woman as well. You've got to understand that, it's important that my children are being nurtured and are being looked after, and not just by nannies and house help. So I try to create a balance when I can to actually make things work for us.